Hey folks, General Manager Tony Mazzucco coming to you with our weekly Facebook Live update. We'll get started in just a few minutes as folks log on. I think as a lot of folks know, we started these several months ago. We've continued them weekly. Dr. Thompson, our school superintendent, had stolen the idea from me of doing them and now does his own weekly Facebook Lives. However, this week I am stealing Dr. Thompson's idea and attempting to do it from home, as Thursdays is my work from home day for the week. We'll see how the work from home works, and we'll see how this works broadcasting from home, which is less than a mile from town hall, so I could just run down there. But we will go ahead and give this a shot. If it doesn't work or if we have any connectivity issues, we'll go back to the way we've been doing them. My sincere thanks to Bernie Cooper. Thank you very much, Michelle. I'm happy to be back from 2 weeks of staycation. My sincere thanks to Bernie Cooper for filling in for me for 2 weeks. Always loyal and always helpful. And Mary Lou, I understand everyone had a special guest last week when Mary Lou came and talked about the election. So we're committed to continuing to bring these to the town every week. We really do hope there's a point in time where we no longer have to have any COVID updates and they're just weekly updates. But we will give them we'll continue to do them, and we will continue to hopefully in a post-COVID world, we'll be able to do them. So thank you, everyone. I'm glad you're all here. We're going to jump right into some COVID numbers, which is what we always do. I do apologize. I realized as I got this set up, I have a very boring background. I'll have to try to work on that. And unfortunately, I do not have a little fluffy dog, as Dr. Thompson does, to come and visit. So I have a water bottle and I have a stand for my cell phone, which is actually a cell phone cup holder, but I tend to use it as a stand when I'm working from home. So thank you, everyone. We're going to jump right into COVID numbers, and then we'll get into some other projects in town, as well as talking about our flood grant program, the hospital, Dean Street, everything that is continuing on, and hopefully some new items and projects as well. So there's some continued good news at a local level on our COVID numbers. Our percent positive rate is 1.19%. I actually tried to draw a diagram because I realized I don't print a lot of stuff at home, but 1.19%. That's really great. It's well below the state average. And again, that number is the percent of people testing in Norwood who are testing positive. So that is a great, great number. Now, we know since we lost the hospital, it's been a little bit more challenging to get testing. However, one of the other numbers we look at is the number of people tested in the last 14 days in Norwood, or I should say from Norwood. And that number is actually, as I look at the wrong page of my notes, scroll back up here, 1,100 tests roughly in the last 14 days. So we actually we believe the increase in the number of tests, because that's actually quite substantial, 1,100 tests in the last 14 days. Likely a lot of people, college students getting ready to go back to college, and folks going on vacation who are going and getting a test and then heading off to vacation in Maine or somewhere. But 1,100 tests in the last 14 days, and out of those 1,100 tests, a 1.19 positivity rate. Which is phenomenal. It shows that we certainly indeed flattened the curve, both here in Norwood and throughout the Commonwealth as well, and our numbers continue to be positive. We are still seeing a handful of cases in a given week. It's averaging 3 to 5 cases in a week. We're lucky that what we're not seeing is cases from dining. We're not seeing cases from people being downtown. We're not seeing cases from people going to the gym. We're not seeing cases from people going into retail stores. A lot of our cases are still, they're either essential workers or people who come into very close contact with other individuals, or they're people in, and we only have a few of them, but they're people in what we would call high density situations, or really it is the parties. Interestingly enough, the extended day program that's run, the rec camp program, the rec swimming program, the pool program, and the rec swimming program, we haven't seen any cases from any of these programs. And what we're really finding is, and now that could happen, I mean, you're seeing recreation programs throughout the state have COVID positive tests, and school programs have them. It has happened elsewhere in the state. It will happen. It'll likely inevitably happen here in Norwood. But so far, we're actually doing fantastic. We've had, and some of these are repeats, we've had 1,100 camp participants and 2,600 pool participants, and we've been able to do great with it so far. What we're seeing is oftentimes it's behaviors that drive whether or not somebody comes down with COVID. There's a town down the Cape where they had a number of lifeguards who ended up having to test positive. They were all at a party together. So luckily here, we're being a little bit more responsible, although we can't control what people do in the off hours. People being responsible and following the rules, wearing masks when they can, makes a difference, especially either avoiding those large, really dense population groups, being outdoors as much as you can, and just practicing good hygiene. It's working. Our numbers are showing that it's working. So our testing is doing great. We are still looking at sort of a drive-up testing, whether we can arrange something like that with the hospital. I'll talk a little bit about the hospital in a few minutes. But so far, our numbers continue to look good. Now, that could change. You could have a spike in numbers, and I always want to encourage everyone that it's good to look at the numbers and see where they're trending, but we want to be cautious that the numbers are actually so low, you could see a swing up or down by what appears to be a lot, or it appears to be a high percentage change, but at 1.19%, it could very easily go to 1.9 or 2%. And we don't want to think, oh my God, it's almost doubled. It has, but we are talking about very low numbers. So we are doing great in Norwood. I want to talk for a minute about the different kinds of tests that are out there just to make sure everyone understands. And next week, we'll have some more information on how the state's changing, what they consider, and what the protocol is for what type of test you get. The most reliable test that's out there, we would call it a PCR test. That's the traditional nasal swab test, if you will. It's not painful, it's slightly uncomfortable, less so than getting any kind of a shot. That's the most reliable test that's out there. It actually picks up the virus's RNA and fragments of it, and that's a true diagnostic test. The antibody tests that people are talking about, so those are on the other end of the spectrum. Those are, we call them serology tests. Those are testing for antibodies that you have had the virus, your body has produced the antibodies, and it still has some of the antibodies. Now, the science isn't really clear on how long the antibodies are going to hang around because everyone is different, but your DNA has sort of a muscle memory, and once it learns to, thank you, I'm happy to be back from vacation or staycation. Once you have the antibodies, your body retains that muscle memory, and you'll, in theory, be able to produce them a lot quicker, but you may not necessarily be producing them. So somebody may go get a serology test and say, I was darn convinced I had COVID, and we actually refer to it as the curiosity test, and I don't have any of those antibodies. Well, it's possible that you don't really have any of those antibodies showing, but your body still retains the ability or capacity to generate them when it detects COVID the next time around, if it happens the next time around. I don't think there's a test for that. That's probably some sort of molecular test beyond our means, but it's also a little bit outside of my wheelhouse. But that's what the serology test is. And then in the middle, and I don't know if you'd really call it the middle, but in my notes it's in the middle, we have what we call the antigen tests. And those are sort of the quick, rapid tests. And it's similar to, although anyone who's an epidemiologist or a scientist will tell you that the science is different, but it's similar to a strep throat test. When you go and get a strep throat test in the doctor's office, they put it in the culture, and then they come back out 20 minutes later or whatever it is, and they say, yes, you have strep throat, or no, it doesn't look like you do. That then gets sent to a lab for a full actual analysis. So it's kind of like a quick and dirty test, like, yeah, all right, it looks like you have it. Not that they're not reliable, but what those rapid tests are good for at this stage, and we hope that the technology continues to improve, is they're good if you need to test a lot of people in a short period of time. And, if you want to test a school, for instance, if you want to test a whole workplace where you can go in and get a whole bunch of tests and then you get the data and you're getting an idea of what it looks like. So we hope quicker testing comes out, but that's what those are really designed for. So if somebody says, well, I had one of those rapid tests on an individual basis, the data is not really worth it. They have a high false positive rate. So there's a use for them. The technology will continue to get better, but that's what the antigen tests are. So it's serology or antibody tests, antigen tests, the quick ones, and then a PCR or sort of a traditional diagnostic test, which currently is the nasal swab, which is the most reliable test. That's what we rely on, is you are a confirmed case. You are either probable or suspect with the other cases, and there's different quarantines, which my understanding is the state may be changing as of next week. So with that little discussion on testing, that's where we are with COVID in terms of our numbers as a community. So continue the great work that everyone's doing, the mask wearing and hand washing, avoiding parties. The state released a few weeks ago guidelines cracking down on bars, but the issue with the bar, again, is the people congealing together and getting all close and going up to the bar. So we've been very strict, and our restaurants have been great about making sure people are seated at a table and that you're not getting up. But as much as it's on the businesses, it's on you, it's on me as somebody who lives here and goes out to eat in Norwood to make sure we're trying to do the good thing, the right things too. Wear your mask when you go to the bathroom. I know sometimes if you're in a restaurant that has a bar, it's habit to want to go up to walk to the bar and get a drink. Just don't do it. Enjoy being served by a very nice waiter or waitress, and adapt to the change for now. And hopefully we will hit a point in the future where there will no longer be a need for such things. I want to talk. I'll talk about the hospital in just a minute, but the brief answer is no new word. They're going through a lengthy, complicated process in the hospital. They've got to work with insurance. They've done an incredible amount of work. We're hoping that the ER is still going to be up and running in the fall. The challenge they're running into is the amount of damage to the building, and then what that genesis is between how quickly do we get it up and running short term, but then we don't want to have to take it down to redo. They wouldn't possibly be installing temporary oxygen or temporary air cooling. So we still meet with the hospital weekly. They're still working through their insurance process. Their goal and our goal is still, of course, getting the ER up and running. Once they fully work through that insurance process, they'll have their exact plan, and then we'll look at moving forward from there. So I know it's a little frustrating that it seems like there aren't more updates coming out of the hospital. A few folks had sent me messages about this, and I apologize to anyone who sent me a message and I didn't get a chance to get back to them. Part of it's that it's not necessarily a process where there are going to be regular updates able to come out. It's every time they open up a wall, they find something different. If you've ever filed an insurance claim, and my heart goes out to anyone who's tried to file one as a result of the flood damage, and insurance companies are just being absolutely horrific about it. Even a simple insurance claim can be challenging. So the hospital filing a 30, 40, $50 million insurance claim, there's adjusters on both sides and there's experts on both sides, and then they have to talk to the inspectors, and then they hire their experts, and then their experts hire experts, and then their experts hire further experts, and then lawyers look at it. It's just an incredibly complicated process for them to go through. So that's a bit of a challenge. So that's really the update on the hospital. No update though; they do continue to work. Their steward is expending a lot of resources. It still looks like a fall opening for the ER, and then that micro hospital sort of concept will be what can be built around that's required for the HR, for the ER, and then what those services can open up. The Guild Medical Center is still affiliated with Stewart Hospital. That's still opening, offering a lot of services there, and they have a small facility in the Rama Plaza. So they'll continue to work on that. Question from Katie: the state will be changing quarantine guidelines. Not necessarily quarantine guidelines, but guidelines as they relate to whether you had an antibody test, a serology. So what the serology test, the antigen test, or a PCR test. So for somebody who tests positive, that's not changing. For somebody who gets an antibody test, it'll be considered, I believe, a suspect case, it'll be a probable case, and then a confirmed case. So the bottom line is what you always want to do is get the serology test. Pretend I didn't say that. Get the PCR test, get the actual full test. That's the best way to know, and then that's sort of the clearest path forward. Other than that, the process would only be changing for folks with a serology or the antigen test. It's just a slightly different process. The short answer is if either of those are positive, you should just get the PCR test because that's really the one that determines whether you are clear to go or clear to leave quarantine or not. Dean Street project update. Great that came up. I'll jump into talking about Dean Street, and then I'm going to jump in back to talking about preparations for a second wave. We have some pictures I'm going to try to show. Dean Street is on track. I think we're in 3 weeks of a 12-week project, so we're still looking at possibly 9 weeks, but we can tell for this first sort of quarter of the project, and I guess that's a way to positively look at it. We are a quarter way through the Dean Street project. You're welcome, Katie. It is going well so far. There have been no problems with the construction, with the deconstruction. We can look at putting a police detail to help people get out onto Neponset Street. Part of the challenge with Dean Street is there is just no easy way to manage cutting the entire street off and redoing the bridge. I said a few weeks ago, it's just a miserable process. We have to get through it, and we will. We'll look into whether or not we can have some additional details there. Especially if schools end up going back and there's an increased traffic. There usually is in the fall. Of course, now it's anyone's guess what that traffic's going to look like. We're going to try to get a couple of photos loaded up here if we can. I'd sent a few in I'd taken a couple days ago of just sort of the Dean Street Bridge unearthed. We always like to take pictures because they're interesting and to have them for a historic record of what it looks like sort of all opened up and why it's as complex. We'll see if we can get those posted here in just a second. If not, I will be able to see if I can pull them up. But it's going well, which is the important thing, that Dean Street is ongoing. and we'll get through it. Usually, you can run into problems at any phase of a project like this, but it's that first quarter where you really start opening things up and you really start to worry that you say, all right, now we've ripped open the road, we've pulled off the old culvert. What's wrong down there? What didn't we see before? And there's sort of a sigh of relief of, whew, it doesn't appear any worse than we thought it was, which is good. So it's rolling along pretty well. Excuse me. We might be having a little bit of a technical difficulty getting the pictures posted. However, what I think I can do is see if I can pull one up on my phone and see if that actually works. If it doesn't, so if you can kind of look at the image there, that is sort of a what it looks like all torn up. Those large metal iron beams there are holding the utilities in place. The electric utility conduit won't be getting replaced. There's some water that needs to get replaced. The complexity of water and sewer and electric and other utilities going through a bridge is what adds to the complexity of an already challenged bridge culvert as it is. So we will get some more photos posted. I know the DPW has posted some. We'll get some posted on our webpage so everyone can sort of see what it looks like when the bridge is all opened up. And best case scenario, we are still on track for about another 9 weeks. It'll get done, completed, and we will no longer have to worry about it. There's an anticipated, the current culvert lasted about 50 years. It's anticipated that we will get 50 to 60 years out of this current culvert, so hopefully none of us actually have to deal with it. Again, at least not while we're working for the town or driving around regularly, but I hope we're all still here in 50 or 60 years. I think many of us will be. There we go. The photos couldn't be uploaded directly, but Norwood DPW shared some photos on their Twitter account, which is linked there. Check them out. It's always cool to see these construction projects when they're in process because it'll be 60 years before any of us can see that all opened up like that again. Thank you, Joe, for getting those up. So I want to talk about a quick note because it's sort of in the news before we talk about preparation for a second wave, if one's going to come and what that's going to look like. Folks may have read in the news yesterday that the Commonwealth is requiring flu shots for students returning to school this fall. And I want to talk about that for a minute and make sure we all understand it. Even when I first read it, I misread it and thought they wanted shots before folks go back to school. That's not the case. They need flu shots prior to December 31st. And it's actually all elementary, high school, and college students. I believe the regulations said something about anyone under the age of 30 getting a flu shot, which you should all get your flu shot anyway. The easiest way to do it, CVS offers them. Walgreens, I think, offers them. If you have a kid in school, you call your pediatrician. Doctors' offices are reporting they're ordering more than their normal amount. We were worried for a while that maybe they wouldn't order flu shots, and then as a result that there'd be sort of a challenge getting some, but doctors' offices are reporting that they're ordering them. When you get a flu shot is always important. It's a little early now to get a flu shot, so you're generally going to want to get them a little bit later in the season, but by all means, talk to your doctor. I am not a doctor. That's just the advice from public health, of course. But usually you want to get them a little bit later in the season, but the requirement is not before, at the most by December 31st. You should certainly get it before then, but I don't want anyone to think that there's a rush to do that. The Board of Health will be having their clinic. However, our clinic never does more than 500 or 600 flu shots. We focus on seniors and first responders. So you should be going generally to your primary care physician for your flu shot. We would not provide 30,000 flu shots for the community. They're widely available through CVS, through Walgreens, and for folks with kids under 18, just contact your pediatrician and tell them you want a flu shot. We do a clinic annually geared towards seniors. We never have we never do. I think we order 700 doses a year, and we have just for first responders alone. If we were to cover our first responder workforce, you're looking at 150 to 200 there. So just contact your doctor. If you do not have a child in school, I still always encourage everyone to get a flu shot. It's always a good idea. Remember, it'll help you recover easier. Flu shots are not perfect. Sometimes you can get the shot for flu A, and this year it ends up being the strand for flu B. That happened to me a couple of years ago where I got the flu shot, and you can still get the flu. It's always a guess as to which strain is going to be the worst this year, but the more people get them, the better it helps reduce the overall spread of the flu. So I'm actually glad that they're saying everyone should get the flu, or kids going to school should get the flu shot, because I think we probably should have always done that. It's a good thing to get the flu shot. Their main reasoning from the state is that if we can reduce the burden on the healthcare system in the winter, by reducing the overall number of flu cases, then that will help. So that way we're not possibly dealing with flu and COVID at the exact same time. So now it's even more that you're sort of dumping on. For anyone who's worried about flu shots, again, always talk to your doctor for medical advice. I did get mine last year and the year before. I go down to the health office, and then they're great because they don't make fun of me for wincing when I get the little shot in the arm. But I find it harmless. I don't really get the runny nose or cold that some people do, but the more people that get a flu shot, the better. I think it is for everyone. So if you have kids, by all means, just call your pediatrician and say, hey, we need a flu shot, and they'll be getting the calls from everyone. But there's no need to rush right out and do it now. It's a little early in the season. I would give it some time. It's just my recommendation. But by all means, call your pediatrician. I think CVS is even advertising on TV and elsewhere that you can just give them a call for your flu shot. And flu shots are covered by insurance in Mass, including by Mass Health. So that leads into preparations for a second wave. Everyone's talking about it. When will the second wave come? What will the second wave look like? And how bad will it be? It's tough to say because in some ways the first wave, if you remember, we successfully flattened the curve. We came close there, but we successfully flattened the curve. So you would assume that if you saw the same spike in rate, we would never hit what we hit before. And from a societal level, even if you had the same interaction, which you won't have bars open, you won't have things at the same capacity, the increased hand washing, wearing masks, that's all going to reduce the level. So social distancing is going to reduce that level. So when you try to picture what a second wave is going to look like, we're not necessarily thinking it's going to look like this and come up again. It may start to get up to a point where we say we need to put in some different measures to once again flatten the curve and bring it back down. We think if we can do those quick and aggressively, you can kind of beat it a little bit quicker. But we're wearing masks now. We're washing our hands more. We're spacing ourselves out more. We don't have large indoor sports gatherings. Even restaurants that are open, the indoors, we've got spacing, whether it's physical spacing or there's barriers in place. There's barriers in the workplace in many organizations. So we're hopeful that a second wave wouldn't be as bad. We're also better prepared. Hospitals have more PPE. There's still not a perfect supply out there of PPE. Municipal governments and organizations have more PPE. It's more widely available. I think if everyone remembers, there was a point in March or April, we all remember toilet paper and we couldn't find toilet paper, which is necessity to life, but not necessarily PPE. But you couldn't go buy a mask in a store. Maybe the Walgreens and CVS's of the world had the paper masks available, but the average person didn't go purchase them or know where to get them. Now we see masks everywhere. There's designer masks coming out. I have masks with different logos on them, and I have a couple of Harry Potter masks, and I have a couple of Norwood Mustang masks. So they're out there, and I think the challenge with the second wave is going to be at what point does the state decide that the numbers are high enough that we need to go back into a different phase 2, phase 2.1, phase 1. I don't foresee us, and I could be wrong, ever going back into sort of a phase 1, only because as we've continued to open up, we have not, both in Norwood and in Massachusetts, seen our numbers grow. You saw certain other states where they closed down kind of late and kind of did a little half a job on it. And then they opened up very quickly and just said, all right, well, everything quick opening back up. And then they've had to go back and do it again. So I don't really think that they faced a second wave. I think they didn't really do a great job, although it's possible that their spread wasn't as high as ours was seasonally. We could see it continue to spread seasonally, but we would take whatever actions we would need to take and base it on the science and data now that we have more contact tracing. And incidentally, we have the contact tracing collaborative. So if we start to see spikes in numbers, whether it's locally in Norwood or it's in other communities, the state has the contact tracing collaborative to be able to quickly get people into quarantine or into isolation and say, hey, you were a contact, let's get you down and let's do it. Restaurants are more aware of who's visiting them. Retail stores are more aware of who's visiting them. We all collectively are more aware of what's going on. I'm happy to say on the town level, we've gotten a lot more information technology out there. We're able to shut facilities down quicker, work from home, go remotely. We went through the first 3 months of this or so without a public health nurse. Stacy Lane, who is our assistant health director, is a nurse and has been our public health nurse, filled in that function. We've now not only filled the public health nurse position, we're using funding to add a second public health nurse. So if there's a second wave, our internal staffing is better, our internal communication is better, our knowledge is better, our understanding is better, our PPE is better. We are ready to revert and do what we need to do quicker and easier than we did before. We have the knowledge, we have the training, we have the tools, and so does the public. We have means of communication out there. So nobody wants a second wave. We'd love to see our numbers just stay in the low percentages and hope that a vaccine comes through and gets distributed. But if that second wave comes and the numbers start going up because there starts to be a lot of spread, we are so better prepared now than we were 5 months ago. And that's incidentally, I sent an email to some staff today, 5.5 months. If you can think about it, this all began 5.5 months ago. We often target March 6th is when it began in Norwood. That's when we knew about our first confirmed case and we had to start our first quarantines. I was among them. So we targeted to March 6th as the beginning for us. So the world was still largely normal on March 5th for just about all of us here in Norwood. And then March 6th is when the news started coming out. So not even 6 months ago, and it's a different world, but we are so much better prepared and ready. And it's not that we weren't necessarily prepared before. If 2 years ago we had said we want to spend a lot of money on technology to make sure employees can work from home if we have to shut down buildings for an extended period of time, I think everyone would have looked at us and said, you're a little off, that's a little strange. I hope that the federal government is better prepared. For years, pandemic preparation has been based on the National Strategic Stockpile will come through with everything that localities need. That, of course, did not happen, but we feel that we're much better prepared to handle things, to get things out, and handle a second wave if it happens. I mean, sadly, we've now been through this. We all know what to do. Historically, pandemics have had a worse second wave, if you will. Certainly that was the case with the 1918 flu. We wonder if we're in a position where maybe it wouldn't be worse. Maybe there is no second wave, or maybe it's not quite as bad because we're just trying to get ahead of it and being better prepared. So the good news is if there is a second wave, we tentatively think it may not necessarily be as bad. I could be wrong, and it could be widespread, and there could be a different strain. People could be ignoring rules, but we're in such a better position compared to where we were that if it happens, we feel confident we can keep people safe and keep some elements of the economy and society functioning. Remember, and knock on wood, because I'm sure it'll happen, the school summer programs, the rec program, the pool program, we ran programs. Some towns ran none. 1,100 camp participants, 2,600 pool participants, and we kept our parks open the entire time, and we have a 1.19% COVID rate, test positive rate. So good work to the community and to all the teams who are doing that. I did talk about the rec. They've extended camp and pool programs because they've been successful. The civic workout room is open. It's currently by reservation only because they can only have a limited number of people in there, but they're reporting that it's fairly full for the handful of people they're allowing in there. So they continue to do a great job there. They're going to be doing some fall programming. It's going to be month to month because we just don't know where things are going to go month to month. Our program, we have about a half a dozen businesses that are doing outdoor exercise or dance classes in different parks and fields. That's continuing, all really organized by the rec department, so kudos to them for that. The library is doing great with both their curbside, they're doing their school pop-up libraries, and they are open in person. I managed to get a book last week, and I've started reading it. It's pretty good so far, although what they are proposing, what they're talking about happening in this book is actually we're seeing the opposite now, but that's okay. It was written a few years ago. So we are still planning on Town Hall opening on the day after Labor Day. However, every Town Hall service is available by phone, by mail. Town Hall, incidentally, will be open for early voting. That's separate from us opening the building. But when the building opens, if you go into Town Hall, it's a great example of really deciding whether or not you need to go into a building and risk a potential exposure. So we want people to go into retail stores because we need people to have jobs and we need businesses to make money. We want you to go into restaurants. We want you to utilize services, but it's the classic example of you can do everything digitally or over the phone. So why not try to do it digitally or over the phone? And I encourage everyone, utilize our digital services, utilize our online services, utilize the mail. America has a great postal service and I have full faith in them. So utilize them, mail it in. Sometimes it takes an extra day or two, but I love getting a letter. I love getting mail. I think a lot of folks do. So when it does open, you won't have to call ahead. We'll probably have one door to the building open. But think about, do I need to go in here? And I know we all want to go in and talk to the friendly folks at the treasurer's office and the clerk's office, and they're wonderful. But it's an exposure. I would much rather have that risk level go to a retail store so people can continue to work, because some of the retail stores, particularly the small businesses, they can't do that they do digitally. Some of the gyms and other places, they can't do what they do digitally. So I encourage you to visit those places safely and just think about your interactions and make sure we're supporting the economy and the community and do as many of your services that a job isn't necessarily tied to remotely as you can. We'll have a treasurer's office. We've done it for 5 months. We've done inspections for 5 months. We've done clerk services for 5 months. So I encourage you, just consider if you can do it remotely with a town business, do it remotely, because state executive office agencies still aren't open, but we'll continue serving the public one way or another. Just think about if there's a better way to do it to reduce an unnecessary interaction that would be better used helping out a local or a small business, or even visiting a friend. We talked about preparation, the second wave of flu shots. Special announcement from Kerry McCarthy, our senior center director. I'm going to read this announcement. Oakdale Farms will hold a pop-up farmers market in the senior center parking lot on Monday, August 31st from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. The first hour will be dedicated to seniors. The community is welcome. Oakdale Farms accepts farmers market coupons and SNAP/HIP benefits. They also deliver weekly to homes in the Norwood area every Wednesday throughout the year. Oakdale Farms was a vendor at the Norwood Farmers Market, so you may remember them. If you are a senior and have not gotten your coupons yet, please call Trish Monahan at the Norwood Senior Center to see if you are eligible. So I'll read that again because I now will get it posted on the Facebook page. I don't know if I've sent the message to Joe to post. Actually, I'll do that right now because the wonders of technology allow us to be able to do that. We'll get that posted in the comments as well. I say the wonders of technology, my phone doesn't work. But again, Oakdale Farms will hold a pop-up farmers market in the senior center parking lot on Monday, August 31st from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. The first hour is reserved for seniors. The community is welcome after that. Oakdale Farms accepts farmer market coupons and SNAP/HIP benefits. They deliver weekly to homes in the Norwood area. They were a vendor at the farmers market. You may remember them. If you are a senior and have not gotten your coupons yet, please call Trish Monahan at the Senior Center to see if you are eligible. So, Oakdale Farms pop-up farmers market at the Senior Center lot on August 31st, 10 to 1. First hour reserved for seniors. Please wear a mask and practice good social distancing if you choose to attend. And 2 more photos of the Dean Street Bridge project were just added to the Facebook post pinned to the top of the town's Facebook page. Update on our flood grant program. It is going slowly but moving along. Bernie Cooper and Monica Medeiros and a couple of our summer interns and some staff from my office are working diligently every day to go through every application. There's an enormous amount of paperwork we need from folks confirming names, confirming assessors database, confirming insurance information, confirming income information. So we're working through it. We're hopeful to get funds out soon. I know we've said that and we've had it delayed. We're just making sure we're dotting every I and crossing every T to make sure that the money goes as far as it can, that it's all legitimate, and that we're just having a really good internal review process. But they're working every day on it. It's been a lot of work. Normally, programs like this, you might sub out to like an MAPC, and then you end up paying a hefty fee for them to manage it, and it's a little bit easier for them. We didn't want to do that this time because we wanted to be quick and nimble, maintain some local decision making, and we also didn't want to give up 10 or 15 or 20% of the grant cost to having somebody else administer it, because that's money that otherwise won't go to folks in the community. I appreciate everyone's patience that has applied. There's dozens of emails going back and forth every single day about the number of information that we need, and people have been great about getting us information. We completed, I think, 160 site visits, and it's been a good process. We just it's just taking a little bit of time, but we're looking to help everyone. Just a quick update from Travis Farley in the rec department. Anytime Fitness, Burn Boot Camp, Kinetic Dance Studio, and Velocity Sports and Plie Bar Studio are all using different fields in town at different times as part of one of the Board of Selectmen's sort of business retention efforts to let them do some outdoor exercise programs. So kudos to those 5 businesses that are utilizing our field. Some of them are doing it a couple days a week, so I think that's absolutely great. At the Callahan, the Coakley, Oldham, Wilson, and Coakley Upper. So that's wonderful. Good work on those businesses there. We did get an email about water and sewer bills. Some folks felt their water and sewer bill was high. So 2 things. One, for a quick look at wondering why your bill is high, always look at the number of days in the billing cycle. We often think of it as a monthly bill. It's actually not a monthly bill. It's a number of days bill because we can only bill for 365 days, assuming that's what's in the year. So sometimes you do have a We had a 35-day bill cycle for some water customers. So sometimes you may go from a 28-day cycle to a 35-day cycle. So your bill looks as if it's bigger, but it's actually just a change in the days of the cycle. You try to keep it down to just 30, 31, 29, but sometimes it ends up growing or shrinking by a day or two, or sometimes a couple of days. So always check that first. But when you have a question about your bill, call the billing office at the light department. The folks in the billing department, our customer service reps, are absolutely wonderful, wonderful people, and they're more than happy to talk to you, to take a look at your bill, to talk through it. They may be able to find out, is there a problem, did something happen, and they'll escalate it up to DPW or light if they, depending on the bill, if there's an issue there. But they're more than happy to help you out and take a look at it. Just go ahead and give them a call at the light department, the billing office rather, I should say, at the light department for water, sewer, electric. More than happy to help you out. But check your billing cycle. It is possible that it's actually rare that there's a meter problem. We have automated meter systems and automated meter readings. 9 times out of 10, if a bill is larger than it should be by a substantial amount, it could mean that there's a leak, but that leak is also local generally to your property. If there's a leak along the road, it doesn't go to your bill. It unfortunately goes to the town bill because we bought the water from the MWRA. You'll usually notice that, but not always. You can also, through the light department's website, sign up to get notification if your bills go over a certain usage level. And I think it's a great tool. I'll actually show you if I can pull up the text message. I get a text message every day that my electric usage is over a certain amount. So you see, I get a little text message. Oh, it's not showing on the screen because it's too bright. Nope, that's not working. But anyway, it's a little text message that says, my meter threshold, meter number, such and such has total consumption above 8 kilowatt hours. Your usage today was 21.2. I don't know why I have it set it at 8. But you can go on there for your electric bill, and I believe it's available for water and sewer as well. It'll send you a text or an email letting you know that your daily consumption is above whatever average you pick. And it'll show you your consumption, so you can say, gee, if I'm usually using, X, X kWh or X gallons a day, I want to get a notification if it goes over a certain amount, and then you're able to sort of track right away what it is. I also will tell you, and it's likely that it was just the billing cycle, you would be shocked leaving a faucet on in the bathroom for a little bit of time, and it runs for half a day or something. You'd be amazed how much actual water that uses, especially if your water usage is otherwise stable. It could cause quite the shock into your system. But I encourage you, give the light department a call if you have a question, and check out the My Meter program. It's really a great program to be able to track your usage and get an update daily if your usage goes up. I'm trying to stay hydrated here. I talked about the rec department and the great job they've done with 1,100 campers and 2,600 pool participants so far. I'm going to talk a little bit about, so our town facilities department is doing fantastic. They recently completed a project up at the high school, installing a lot of new LED lights at the high school, and that was a combination of Green Communities funding. It was the new, so the existing facilities department with their added resources, as well as our energy manager, and that'll lead to some electricity savings for the high school, as well as a more energy efficient building. We're thrilled with the work that they're doing, and continues to show barely a month and a half in, that it's not only a time and a money saver for the town, but we've got a great facilities team that's really doing some great work. And we're already starting to look at the future, what we want to do in 6 months, what we want to do at a year and 2 years. And I predicted a few months ago that a couple of years would go by and we would ask ourselves how we never did this before with the facilities department. And we're already seeing that a month or two in. It's like, why wasn't this the way we've been operating for quite a while? So kudos to the facilities team at all of our town and school buildings, and Paul Riccardi and Chris Folan and Maureen Heffernan and the admin team there for the great work that they're doing with the facilities department and getting us up and running. All right, that is the end of updates I have. I did talk a little bit about the hospital earlier, that there's really no update. They're still hoping for a fall and looking at a fall ER opening date. Working through the complicated insurance process and working with adjusters to make sure they get a final determination from the insurance company, and that'll determine what they'll do. We're meeting with them regularly. EMS meets with them sometimes twice a week. We're in daily contact with them, really, through one element of the town or another. And we're still looking forward to a bright future with Norwood Hospital, and we think great things are to come. It's just a challenging process right now to work through all of the various insurance and other items that they've got to go through. And as I said, it's a matter of the insurance company hires an expert, so the company hires an expert, and then the experts hire experts, and then there's the decision, and then the adjuster says A, and then somebody else's adjuster says B, and then they go to the towns, and then they ask the inspectors, well, is this the case or is that the case? What does the code say? What will you allow? So it's just a complicated process, a lot of bureaucracy, but Steward's been great to work with so far. Sorry, not for, to work with so far. I think they're putting up some signage soon about great things to come at Norwood Hospital, and we're confident that great things are to come. We know we want the ER up and running as soon as possible, but we also want to make sure it's safe. We also don't want to have it up and running and then have to take it down, and then have it up and running and then take it down. So slow and steady wins the race, and we're looking forward to it, but we're still thinking that it's looking like a lot of new construction at the hospital in the future. I know our public safety departments, Norwood Fire, Norwood Police, are feeling the pinch of not having the hospital locally, so they are interested in getting certainly the ER up and running as soon as possible and the rest of the hospital, and we're all looking forward to the return of a full service hospital and what additional services we think we can get with a new hospital. So it's challenging in the short term, frustrating that there's not a lot of sort of daily progress or daily milestones to be able to report, but happy overall that things seem to be moving in a positive direction. So with that, I think that concludes most of my updates. I would be more than happy to take questions. I'll scroll through some of the comments. Actually, let me make myself a note about the details at Dean Street to look at that. And incidentally, there's a couple of businesses along Dean Street. There's, I think, the Frame Center and Stash's Pizza. They are probably more impacted than other businesses by the closure of the road. So just give them a chance to take a look at them if you can. Not that we ever, of course, make any endorsements of businesses in town, but we do know that whenever you have a road closure or sidewalk work, it really hits the businesses closest by. You see a lot of towns put up, business open signs, business is still open, and those are helpful, but it's a matter of, oh, I don't like driving down the road and I don't want to drive around to go there. So still try to make sure you're giving them a shout. We don't want them to suffer a loss of business as a result of the road closure. I mean, almost any business does, but we encourage you to continue to patronize them, even if it's a little bit difficult to get around the detour. We will be there sooner rather than later. Reading through the comments, looks like we've addressed most of the comments. So if anyone has any questions about COVID, our COVID response, anything else that's going in town, any other projects going on in town. I know it was a busy week back for me, being out for staycation for a while. Incidentally, I'd highly encourage staycations in Norwood. I did have a lot of fun. I think I did one night in Boston, but just spent time at home relaxing and spent time going out to a lot of our local businesses and enjoying them and just enjoying time here in Norwood. So we are a great staycation location. I think we're a great vacation location too. But if you're not sure what to do, take some time off and just take a look at your community as a vacation destination. Downtown continues to do well with outdoor dining. We haven't set an end date for that. I believe when the selectmen approved their regulations for the temporary outdoor dining, it really was just until a time that the selectmen choose for it to end. That's certainly not going to be an arbitrary time. I think certainly the winter will be a challenge, but we'll continue to work with the businesses and say, what works for them, what works for safety. It seems to be going well for a lot of the businesses in Norwood Center that are doing it. Central Street, I hope everyone's had a chance to visit Central Street. It's been very popular this summer, and to see some of the great artwork that's been painted. There were a number of artists. I don't want to name them all because I think I would forget some of the names, but they've done some incredible work with the DPW's put some of that out. But I would encourage you to check out the artwork on Central Street. Laura, that's okay. Yeah, the flood grant program is ongoing. It's been I don't want to say it's been a little bit delayed, but the process of having to go through and get all of the applications certified and all of the thank you, Dennis. It's a fire commissioner shirt. I would wear a 1631 shirt if he sent me one. Just saying. But the flood grant program is ongoing. We're just trying to finalize all the details. Some folks have had to send us updated information, so every application requires 8 or 10 different data points, and we're just trying to go through all of them to know that we have all the information to make sure everyone's eligible. Because when we make that final funding decision, we don't want to exclude somebody just because we're trying to make sure we get the paperwork correct, and we got to be careful about the making sure we're being as fastidious with the funds because they're so limited as we can. We think most people who apply will be able to get some kind of $50, Dennis. We'll talk, maybe 40.
Depends if it goes to a good cause. I'll tell you what, Dennis, if you send me a 1631 shirt, I will not only wear it at one of my Facebook Lives, I will donate $50 to a charity of your choice. Um, that'll be the deal. So anyway, back to the grant program. It is ongoing. Folks have been great about getting us information. When you think about every single application that we get, needing the tax information, needing the insurance denial, needing proof that their ownership or live there, proof of the assessor's record, it's just complicated. The staff has been great at going through it, and we're going to continue to have them go through it. So we're hoping to make announcements or funding soon. We may be as early as tomorrow to at least let some folks know, and then there's just a form they'll have to fill out. So we're doing sort of that final check process. At some point, I think what I'll do, maybe during one of the Facebook Lives, is just take everyone through the start to finish process that the team has done. I mean, in brief, it was we had people submit their information, they had to submit their application, we did a check of the applications, then we had to go back and ask for information. Then we went out and did a site visit. Then we did a verification of the site visit. Then we did another review to make sure, okay, we've gotten your tax form. Now we have to go through and make sure it shows the accurate information. It has the right year. It has the right information there. Are there no other forms that we need? We get them back. Then we have to verify them. So there's been a lot of back and forth. I had said earlier, Laura, one of the reasons we're doing this in-house, sometimes you normally sort of contract out a program like this to somebody like MAPC, but when you do, you lose some of the cost of the grant to pay for their overhead. We wanted the overhead to be in-house because we didn't want to lose a portion of the grant to having somebody else oversee it or manage it, and then we would end up not having those funds available to give to residents. So it makes us pull our hair out, but it's a matter of we wanted to make sure we got the most amount of the money. So the funds we have available, 100% of them are able to go right to residents with the grant program, as opposed to having to comp out 10% of it or something like that, or 15% to a grant agency or a cap agency or something. We do that in a lot of cases when it's just easier for the town, but we wanted to maximize the dollars. So hopefully soon, but the money hasn't gone anywhere. The applications haven't gone anywhere. We're just working through that complicated process, which is an incredible paperwork. I wouldn't call it a nightmare. It's just close to 200 applications and 8 to 10 data points per application that need to be received and then verified. Just equates to a lot of work. So kudos to Bernie in my office, Monica Medeiros, Xavier Cullen, one of our interns, and Dante Zalvadar, one of our interns. They're doing a lot of the back end work and the data collection, as well as I think we had probably 15 folks go out on site visits, some town staff. So kudos to all of them, and we had a couple of volunteers from different boards and groups go out and visit. I think it was over 140 sites were visited. So it's been a good process. It's been a challenging process, but we're hopeful to get funds out soon. And at this point, it does appear that there's just local funds. We've gotten okay from the state to use some of our certain local funds, but no dollars as of yet that we're aware of from the state. And as Joe just said, still reviewing, nearly ready, maybe as early as tomorrow to start sending notifications to applicants. Yeah, and by reviewing, it means that it's not that we're sort of looking at it and saying, we don't know about this one. It's a matter of just verifying all the data that we're getting. A question for Eddie: any word on extra funding for the school system? So the state is level funding state aid. So originally there had been a projected increase of around $1.7 million for FY21, and what they've come out with and said for the first quarter they're going to keep it level with FY22. So our costs aren't level. So level funding is it's a cut in my eye. So it's level with FY20. If that progresses throughout the whole year, that'll be about $1.7 million in less revenue than we had initially projected. They are doing an extra, I think, $225 per student for COVID-related aid. That doesn't amount to a whole lot for the school department. The school committee voted to tentatively go forward with a hybrid model, and the understanding is that that model for the year will come with added costs. We'll be able to find those costs. It's not as if somebody's just saying, well, hey, can we just spend $700,000 on this great idea? It's a matter of we have to do something. We know we have to educate kids, and we'll likely use free cash or stabilization to come up with that money for the year, just to make sure that we will take care of them. So that won't be a problem. It's not ideal. It's not a great financial decision. Nobody wants to
take $1 million and then spend it and we'll never see it again just to get through a year. That being said, that's the model that's best balanced between public health and the need to operate and the need for children. So what the school committee wants to go with, we're going to make sure we find a way to fund it in hopes that 20 years from now, somebody will be looking at Old Town Report and say, hey, they spent $1 million on a hybrid school model. What the heck was that? And we'll never have to do it again. I'd certainly defer to Dr. Thompson or the school committee on the merits of that selected choice. I do know operationally the benefit to the hybrid model is if you start with a hybrid model and you have to go remote, you at least have some routine and some knowledge built in. If we're able to go back in person, you can easily go back in person. Whereas if you started in person, going from that to remote would be challenging. Going from in person to remote, which we did in the fall, in the spring, you could do. But again, it's they're making the best choice they make. I think it's a good one based on balancing sort of public health and education and what we can do for folks. We'll find a way to make sure we can fund it. It's not that it's a small amount of money, but we're going to make sure we're able to do it and take care of students in the school system. I'm also my pitch, and again, I'm the town manager. I'm not the selectmen, the finance commission, and I'm certainly not the school committee, the superintendent, or the school admin, or the teachers. But after going through the override, after making a decision about the future of the community and what we want our education system to look like, I'm adamant that we are not going to take steps backwards. Not now. We're not going to go backwards. So they might be able to rearrange things in their budget, but I don't think they should be cutting things out of their budget to nickel and dime. And I don't think anyone's proposing that, but I just don't think we should do that. We shouldn't take a step backwards. We have to do things differently this year. Nobody plans for pandemics. Would the town save money if students are remote? Not likely. On the one hand, the Remote Learning Academy, and again, Dr. Thompson's the expert on that. If they go with that option for the Remote Learning Academy, there's a cost per student, and none of our sort of sunk costs get reduced. Buildings, you can turn some lights down, you can turn the heat down sometimes, but some people will still have to be in the buildings. You're still going to need to clean them. So if you went with a fully remote option, anything you're cutting out of the budget, you would really only just be putting back in the budget, and then it gets into the whole educational quality issue and the equity issue. And what you're going to see across towns, unfortunately, throughout the Commonwealth is families that are able to may keep their kids home and opt for the remote option. That's better for younger kids to have a routine, but it's tough for families who have to send kids to work. On the one hand, schools are not here to babysit children. That's not what teachers do. On the other hand, society has a model where kids go to school, so we're all kind of stuck in the middle of that. But I think they'll pick the model. They pick the model I think is best. The remote option might see some savings, but we pay a note on the high school. We're paying that note whether there's 1,000 kids in there or 400 kids in there or 0 kids in there. So most of our costs are sunk, and a teacher teaching at home versus teaching in the classroom, and that's sort of an educational and operational issue for Dr. T to work with, and the admin and the teachers. There's really no cost difference there. In some ways, you can make an argument that certain areas will cost more because there's more of a need for technology, more of a need for IT support. So that's a challenge. So it's not perfect. They want to go with the hybrid model. We support the school committee certainly in their decision, and we're going to make it happen. And we're going to make sure we get the resources that Dr. Thompson and his team need to make it happen. There's no easy solution. I think before they just made a decision, Dr. Thompson and I have a very good relationship. I called him and I said, will you hurry up and make a decision because I want to criticize you for whatever you pick. And it was sort of a tongue-in-cheek comment, and he laughed at it because he knew that there's no perfect solution. And it's not about pleasing people. It's not about, well, some people will be mad here, some people will be mad here. There's not one model that works for everyone, and you can't do everything. It's also a pandemic. I was joking with Dr. Thompson when he took his education, finance, and administration courses. I certainly don't think they said, well, here's how you manage a pandemic. So it's unprecedented times. Incidentally, somebody had sent me a t-shirt that said I miss precedented times, and I thought that was a riot. I don't know if it's correct English, but I think we all miss precedented times. You're welcome, certainly, Eddie and Megan. We're going to support the school committee and our teachers and admins during a really hard time. I think even maybe calling it unprecedented is like it's new and we never thought this was going to happen. It's also difficult. It's a challenge. Particularly, I know a lot of my colleagues, none of us got into local government to perpetually manage crises. And I know teachers didn't get into teaching to teach from home and to teach remotely and to teach hybrid models. Administrators certainly didn't get into school administration to oversee buildings that have half the students in them and students coming and going and students coming. Nobody, nobody got into it to do it that way. And certainly our police and fire didn't get into EMS. They got into police and the EMS services and fire services. They get in it to help people, but it starts to take a toll when you're constantly helping people in the context of an emergency and a pandemic. It wears on a lot of folks. So we're lucky we have a great team here in Norwood. All of our town and school employees, and I like to say town because everyone's it's all one community and we're all one organization, but they're all doing good. I mean, the police officers are, with the hospital closure on top of everything, they're having to travel to Brockton, they're having to travel to Needham. The poor fire department and the EMS department, it's one department, but I mean, they're having to do runs further out. We've actually seen, because other departments are having to travel further without Norwood Hospital, we're responding to more mutual aid calls. And I mean, they're doing great, but it's wearing on everyone. It's a challenging time for everyone. So, but we're here to provide services for the town of Norwood, and we're going to continue taking care of our residents as we go forward. And I believe Dr. Thompson does his Facebook Lives on Tuesday as well. He tends to get in a little bit more of the details than I can, but certainly kudos to him and his admin team and teachers. And my heart goes out to the school committee, who I don't think any of them decided to run for school committee and wanted to help out and then decide which model is best to pick during a pandemic. But I think they've risen to the challenge of challenging times. We're almost at the hour mark. If folks have more questions or comments or any other things they'd like updates on, feel free to ask. You can always email us at managers@norwoodma.gov, and we'll get back to you. Sometimes that email address gets a little clogged up with some other things we do through it, but feel free to email us and go ahead and we'll get back to you, or we'll get you the answer. We bring them up here. We respond to people. You can also, it doesn't have to be brought up on Facebook Live. We can always give you a private answer if you'd like. August 26th school committee meeting. I always encourage you to watch it online through NCM, who's also been a great partner throughout all this. NCM does a lot of great things for the community, and they're easy to work with. But reach out to us. Let us know if you have any questions. Let us know if you need help with anything, especially if you're struggling with different things. You can always let us know. You can call the Citizen Information Center, email us at managers@norwoodma.gov. We are here to help. And Sheila, we agree. It's a good direction to at least start. It's hard to predict what the right choice is, and there is no clear A versus B. Thank you, Jane, and thank you for joining us, and thank all of you for joining us. And just a big shout out to everyone in Norwood. We have been through a challenging 5.5 months, and all of our residents, our businesses, people have stepped up. Municipal staff, school staff, public safety, towns, and everyone has done a great job. Karen, quick. Have they decided when they're taking down the LaRusso building? Whether they are, it looks like they are. They haven't picked a date yet. The generators are running because the electrical room is shot in the building. So they haven't made any final decisions, but they're still looking towards, it looks like, a full rebuild of the hospital. They're working through their insurance process now. Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Bob, also for being one of our site visitors. And Bob was one of our regular volunteers at the Mustang Food Pantry. Incidentally, if you or anyone you know in Norwood is suffering from food insecurity, we still have funds available to help, and the Ecumenical Food Pantry is available. So please call the Citizen Information Center. There are funds available and means available to help folks. So thank you, everyone. I hope everyone has a great day. We'll go ahead and log off, but continue to either ask questions and we'll get to you, or just email us at managers@norwoodma. And thank you all for what you do for our community, and we'll keep on keeping on in Norwood. I still say we have a bright future. COVID has been challenging, but it's been a great summer, and we're looking forward to a good fall. The world may look a little different, but we are all in this together. So we'll keep on keeping on, and let us know if you need help. We'll take care of anyone. Thank you, everyone, and everyone have a great day and have a great weekend if it's an early start to your weekend. Thanks, everyone.